Good morning. Welcome to this online worship service with the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We're a congregation in Durham, North Carolina, and we're a member congregation with the larger Unitarian Universalist Association. We answer the call of a larger love here in this congregation, and we believe that people of all races, ethnicities, genders, ages, abilities, and every economic and immigration status can join together in one beloved community. And that together we can find ways to create and become something new together. I'm Reverend Deborah Cayer. I'm the lead minister here at ERUUF. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome, especially if you are eager to find others who are open and inclusive, who honor both science and spirituality. Wow, you may just have found your people. Welcome. If you're visiting, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat box. You'll find a link there that will take you to some other information about us, more information about us, and also people will greet you, I'm sure of it. This morning, I'm here with the rest of the worship team, Reverend Stacy Grove, who is ERUUF's consulting pastoral care minister. Members of the Pastoral Care Team have recorded pieces, and they're with us this morning that way. The Eno River Singers are also recorded, but Kate Lewis is here live on the piano, as is Scott Gaskins on soundboard, and Sean Trimble and Jenny Jolly, who are our tech team this morning. Reverend Stacy and the care team are going to host another Death Cafe today from 1 p.m. to 2:30 on Zoom. You can find information about how to find that later in the service and also on our website. This is part of an ongoing series that our pastoral care team has offered over the past year and a half or so. This is not a support group, but it's a chance to talk together about the multiple losses that we've all faced of people, community, jobs, and more during the pandemic, which those things can be like small deaths or just significant deaths. Anyway, we're doing this, we're hosting this because we know that when we face the pain of grief, it can actually lead to growth and self-knowledge and compassion. All the things that we need for ourselves and that our world so desperately needs as well. Here's something very exciting. Today, after the meditation, as music for meditation, our virtual ERUUF's Eno River Singers are going to be singing Hymn for These Times. It's the very first time we think that it's being performed anywhere. The music was composed by Jay Rogers, and the lyrics are by Megan Moorhead, and Megan is from Durham. The Eno River Singers had an opportunity recently to meet with Rogers and Moorhead and hear about their process as they created this piece. Jay and Megan wrote Hymn for These Times late last spring at the start of the pandemic, and as I said, we believe that our choir is the first choral group to perform this. There will be an inquirer's class today at noon. You can find the link later in the service. Everyone's welcome, especially visitors or anyone who would like to become a member or just anyone who'd like to find out more about us. Information about how to find that will be on the screen at the end of the service. We've got other wonderful groups and classes right now. You can find all that information on our website. So at this time, let's just take a breath. Let's center ourselves. Just feel ourselves settle into the goodness of this moment. The goodness of being here now together. We're going to continue the service with the prelude. In These Hard Times was composed by Linda Hirschhorn, and she leads it here for us. The words will be on the screen if you would like to sing along.
In these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times.
Here we have gathered in search of answers to hard questions. We've come in search of understanding, in search of community. We have come in search of hope and healing.
Let this be a place not only of searching, but of discovery. Let this be a place not only of learning, but of wisdom. Let this be a place not only of meeting, but of connection. And let this be a place where healing fosters giving and hope fosters service.
We light our chalice this morning for the love that exists within us and among us, the larger love that holds us always as we journey through life.
Our next hymn this morning is a gorgeous version of The Lone Wild Bird, which was first published in 1927 by a Presbyterian minister, Henry McFadden. Contemporary lyrics have been added, and they are by Marty Haugen. This morning's version is by Honey Whiskey Trio. These lyrics will be on screen, so you can sing along if you wish.
The lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with you, nor leaves your side, and I am yours, I rest in you. Oh, wondrous love, rest in me too. Each secret thought is known to thee, my whole life's path, whate'er it be, and I am yours, I rest in you. Oh, wondrous love, rest in me too, rest in me too. The ends of earth stretch far and wide, through darkened sea and open sky, and I am yours, I rest in you. Oh, wondrous love, rest in me too, rest in me too.
Welcome. Care Ministries team members would like to share why they enjoy being on this team.
After 40 odd years in California, I joined ERUUF and the Care Ministries because of the need to connect in a meaningful way with others.
The sharing and connection that developed from the visits and conversations I have had with homebound ERUUF members has enriched my life.
Because my life too has been enriched through my membership in the ERUUF community, I feel grateful to be able to give back by providing meals to those in need.
I deliver Sunday service altar flowers to homebound ERUUFians. It feels so good seeing their smiles when I visit.
One of the most important functions of ERUUF is the creation and cultivation of community. I appreciate that pastoral care plays an essential role in this mission.
I support the meal team because when someone is in need, making and delivering a meal is an immediate, tangible, yet simple way to show that we ERUUFians care.
I enjoy being part of the team that supports members in need by phone calls, visits, and meals.
I drive ERUUFians to medical appointments. I like serving an important ongoing need for those facing serious illness. I value the very effective training and support provided by our clergy and team.
Pastoral care helps me to connect with members while doing something I love. Meeting with a great team, making calls, sending cards, forming listening circles, and sharing our needs so they can be met has given me comfort and mission.
I participate in pastoral care because the essence of a good life is expressing kindness. My name is Marc Silling, and I've been in the pastoral care program for about 5 years. Until 2012, I was a psychologist, and helping people gave me a great deal of satisfaction. But then I retired, and that meant that the meaning and achievement I got from my job was gone. The pastoral care program provides me with the life satisfaction of caring for people at ERUUF that was missing in my life. I first started by delivering flowers. When delivering flowers, the point is not really the flowers. The flowers are just an excuse to show up. The real point is to spend time with people. So the first time I delivered flowers, I showed up at a guy's house, and when I went in, I noticed he already had 8 poinsettias. And as I handed him his 9th poinsettia, he was so thankful because it meant that I could spend an hour then sitting there talking to him. I lost my wife in cancer in 2013, so I've worked with men helping them find romance after the loss of their partners. For some it worked, which was very satisfying, both to me and to them. More recently, I've been leading a caring conversation group that meets once a week via Zoom. While it is a drop-in group, many of the people come every week, and I feel we've developed an intimate online community through this program. It's still going on. See the ERUUF webpage if you want to join in. I'm in a lot of different groups at ERUUF, and I noted many people live alone, isolated due to the pandemic. So I started going for walks with people I think are lonely. These are people who live alone typically, who have little contact with others due to the pandemic. So an hour-long walk with someone willing to really listen to them means the world to such a person. Usually we do this at Duke Forest where it's isolated and you don't have to walk right next to the person. Then I had a karma experience. Susan was gone for 6 days, leaving me alone. Someone who knew my lonely people walks called me up and took me for a walk. It was an unexpectedly long walk since we got lost, but I felt so cared for by this. So feeling care is what the pastoral care program is all about.
Howard Thurman said, "In the stillness of the quiet, if we listen, we can hear the whisper of the heart giving strength to weakness, courage to fear, hope to despair." These past months of winter have been a very quiet time for me. They've not been easy. Losses have increased, and life has been anything unlike I would ever have imagined we would be living. I sought the quiet and the solitude as a means of grasping the fullness of what we are all experiencing in our diverse ways. Lighting candles, holding loved ones within and beyond our beloved community with a prayerful heart, offering a daily gratitude practice, and spending lots of time in the natural world. All these have supported an otherwise very challenging time of isolation. In the midst of this pandemic year, we have lived to tell the story. We may be weary from the challenges that we've endured during this time, sometimes a very lonely stretch of time. Most of us have had to step away from the familiarity of pre-pandemic daily routines to establish new patterns in the home. Some days were very difficult, and it seemed we were just surviving, managing our households as best we could, with our children at home being schooled online while we worked in another room, while others were working at high-risk job locations. This past year has really stretched each of us. It is difficult to reflect upon our experiences when we're doing our best to navigate our daily lives. We know how disheartened we were at times, feeling the loss of how to carry out meaningful life rituals. Some days, many days, we were simply holding on, facing our shadow selves, remembering who we were and how we could face each day anew with hope and joy. Many milestones came and went with new and innovative practices speedily developed to accommodate their celebrations. Creativity soared as we adapted to this new way of being. Climate, racial justice, and political issues escalated, creating fear, solidarity, a broader sense of community that became more globally focused. Little things that previously failed to capture our attention took on new meaning in our lives. Perhaps it was more our distraction or lack of focus to notice. There are always distractions from tending to our inner life. Some have forgotten or pushed aside awareness of our intricate interconnection with the natural world. It's so easy to follow the lure to fill the empty spaces of our lives with things that don't really serve us well. And at the same time, we need to do this at times as a coping tool for dealing with loss. Howard Thurman said, "Whatever may be the tensions and the stresses of a particular day, there is always lurking close at hand the trailing beauty of forgotten joy or unremembered peace." We humans are slow to learn, repeating history through the ages. Awakening now in a different consciousness, we can recognize the mistakes along the way and do our part to bring harmony, kindness, love, and peace to those fragmented spaces. With vaccines now being distributed at a ramped-up pace, we are sensing the relief of what has been and continues to be the liminal space, a threshold from what was to what is becoming. States of being in which we feel different or uncomfortable. The liminal veil is that place where a transition occurs between the threshold and the place that waits before us. Sometimes it comes quickly, while other times it is slow and seemingly endless. Be patient, friends. We can choose to rush back to the old familiar patterns of living, as some are doing. And yet, we have a choice to stay awake to the insights gained during these past 13 months. We seek healing from the lived pain and suffering during this time. The truth is, we have all been dealing with varying states of trauma. Deep within, we seek healing and wholeness. And what that looks like for each of us is unique. At the same time, it is a real awareness of awakening to life and living in a world beyond the normal we have known. We all have our stories we can share about this time of pandemic. While we recognize various losses, we need to share our story in community to validate the feelings we have from those experiences. We are social beings and cannot easily process our feelings in a silo of isolation from community. For the past 9 months, dedicated members of ERUUF's Pastoral Care Team have been providing a safe space to navigate these challenging times, to show up virtually in community and share stories. It has provided comfort, safety, encouragement, and a place to validate feelings, concerns, insights, and joys. Other team members have reached out to our community offering encouragement and a listening ear. Today at 1, we are offering our latest in the series of Death Cafes. This is an opportunity to simply talk about your experience of loss and grief, perhaps especially as it comes out of the losses of this past year. We welcome you all. Psychologist Frances Weller, author of The Wild Edge of Sorrow, shares, "Grief has always been communal, always been shared, and consequently has traditionally been regarded as a sacred process. Too often, in modern times, our grief becomes private, carrying an invisible mantle of shame and forcing our sorrow underground, hidden from the eyes that would offer healing. We must restore the conversation we need to have concerning the place of grief in our lives. Each of us must undertake an apprenticeship with loss. The trauma we experience is a rupture in our sense of cosmological belonging. Ritual and community help to suture the tear in our code of belonging as we work to repair it. Oscar Wilde wrote, "Where there is sorrow, there is holy ground." Honoring sorrow is our spiritual work. And within the beloved community, we can do the inner work of healing and transformation. We are doing just that with small group programs that are inviting us to grow. There is a Jewish term called tikkun olam, repairing the world. It's from rabbinic teachings compiled in the 3rd century. It can mean improvement, establishment, repair, prepare, and more. It refers to some kind of social change or process that is for the betterment of society or humanity or the world. This process happens through acts of justice and kindness, and equally through ritual observance, whether primarily through internal work of an individual or through external deeds and communal action. One understanding is that if every person does their part to repair the fragmented parts of oneself, it helps to heal the fragmented parts of our communities, increasing the capacity for the repair of the world. Combining that understanding of each individually supporting the whole, Francis Weller believes every human being has the unique capacity to add to the world. Each of us can bring forth love and goodness, creativity, thoughtfulness, and human warmth. We each have potential to be fully present in this world, fully open to the possibilities of relationship with another. How will we play our part in the world now? If we do that inner work, messy though it may be, and strive more fully to make choices that are not self-serving, but rather supporting others, then we have the capacity to be a bridge toward that tikkun olam. We carry our own song, our own unique stories, our own important gifts and talents. By bringing those parts of ourselves to wholeness, we support the collective. Do we go back to sleep, or do we stay awake to the possibilities of our growth potential? It is a personal choice. Together, we can move through this process of becoming. We can share our stories in a loving, safe container, embraced by the all-encompassing love that supports us in the midst of our struggles. Who are we becoming now, this beautiful spring of 2021, with our personal and our collective losses? Whatever comes our way in life is an opportunity for us to meet our growing edge, to delve deeper into a deeper understanding, to cling to our spiritual practices when we feel untethered. I cannot tell you who or what I'm becoming just now. What I do know is that it's in process. It feels awkward at times and very unfamiliar. And yet, this is what humanity has done for centuries as the old gives way to the new. We are an active part of the wheel of life. We all have our unique song to sing in this world. It has been a struggle to keep singing our song these months when we're not yet able to sing together. Be patient, friends. As we hear the birds singing loudly this spring, can you feel your own song rising from within? Can you use your song to support others as they find theirs? We can do our part to remember, so we can sing our song loudly and joyfully in a new way, with a new language of understanding that can help reveal a collective new song. This is what community is about. One hand reaching out for another, being met just where we are in the moment, by the hand of another. We can do this together. Howard Thurman said, "Listen to the long stillness. New life is stirring. New dreams are on the wing. New hopes are being readied. Humankind is fashioning a new heart. Humankind is forging a new mind. God is at work. This is the season of promise. May it be so."
I invite you to join me for spoken and silent meditation. Here in this latest stage of the pandemic, we can see the end just a little bit farther ahead. And yet, between then and now, there's still a gauntlet of loneliness, loss, and trauma that we have yet to navigate. Hear these words of Howard Thurman. He says, "I share with you the agony of your grief. The anguish of your heart finds echo in my own. I know I cannot enter all you feel, nor bear with you your burden of your pain. But I can offer what my love gives, the strength of caring, the warmth of one who seeks to understand the storm-swept barrenness of so great a loss. This I do in quiet ways, that on your lonely path you may not travel alone." This morning we hold in our hearts all who suffer and all who mourn, especially Jim and Marilyn Cox after the death of Jim's brother, Eugene. The family and friends of Seal Cleveland, whose memorial service was yesterday afternoon. And the family and friends of Mary Beth Bishop, who died unexpectedly in March. We celebrate, too, with all who savor life's sweeter moments, small and large, at a socially distant song circle outside with friends. As a grandchild is hugged, or we make our first visit to the nursing home after a long, lonely year apart. As Thurman says, we quietly offer our love so that no one has to be alone on the path. We give thanks this gorgeous spring morning for the love of family and friends who are there when we are in need. Out of our suffering, may we gain new capacity, not just for ourselves alone, but to share with the aching world. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
Still the night and bright the stars, still the owl and soft the dark, still the lullaby a mother sweetly sings, still the hours of night morning
Beautiful. I've been hearing a lot about grief lately. You probably have too. And I've been feeling a fair amount myself. So I did some reading. I thought I knew a lot about this, and yet I was astonished to learn that some, like Francis Weller, believe that there's a very strong social component to grief, and it's only recently that we've privatized it. But that when we deal with our grief as it arises, we can help not only ourselves, but also our families and our communities. And if we don't do this, we end up offloading our grief onto others. Another healer and teacher, Martin Pretchell, says, grief is not a preference. For choosing to not have grief when grief is there is to defer and burden someone else with having to do your grieving. This makes the world a sick place. Grief permeates life, and grieving can take many forms, but grief can never be outrun or simply thought away. It can't be transcended or meditated into non-existence. Necessary grief, when shunned or unattended, can easily hide for years, even generations, in the skeletal structure of the family collective psyche. Like light, matter, sound, and energy, grief will eventually manifest even among those in the future who did not consciously experience the loss. So, best to grieve when it's time, to save the world a lot of war and trouble. Martin Pretchell. That's just an astonishing observation. But I have since discovered that trauma experts say something along similar lines, that grief is a natural response to a serious injury or emotional, spiritual, or physical loss. And as we slowly find our way through trauma, this process can then help our life become larger again, because trauma shuts us down, so it opens us back up. And eventually we find wholeness again in a new way. And yet, on the other hand, if we don't let ourselves mourn, if we don't grieve, if we just try and ignore it, if we try and tough it out and soldier through, we end up storing this unprocessed trauma and pain in our bodies. This toxic stuff remains in our muscle and our brain tissue, and it blocks our way. It gets in our way. This happens exponentially if we experience oppression, if our trauma is because of oppression. When life and other people keep handing us bag after bag of toxic waste, no matter how much we tell them to stop. We never asked for this, but people and systems just keep dumping it on us. There's no time and no space to have a brave, thoughtful process. It's toxic overload, and it can be so harmful. We are in the midst of a movement for Black lives that was born out of this kind of toxic overload when Black people and their supporters seized the moment to turn out into the streets and say, enough with the toxic dumping. This past year especially, people have realized that it's better to push loudly for social change than to hold unjust suffering inside where it will only grind down people's souls. There are a lot of different theories about how we pass along pain and trauma to others. One possibility is that the effect of traumatic loss gets passed along through our facial expressions, our body language, even by what we refuse to talk about or who or what we vehemently denounce or curse. If we continue to ignore the origins of this pain, if it's unprocessed tragedy, it can just get woven into our family or into even our larger community's identity. It can become a part of who we think of ourselves as who we are and how we do things, and it can be passed along unconsciously to future generations. It takes courage to face your suffering and to grieve. You have to admit that you're vulnerable, not in control, that you don't have the power to fight off all the threats. And that's terrifying. We don't want to know this. I don't want to know this. And so sometimes we're motivated to begin this process only because the pain is so great. And we're motivated to relieve the pain. We just can't take it anymore. Which means that all of this work can take a while. We just go at the speed of human, and sometimes it's not speedy. It involves being very brave, working up the courage to face the unthinkable, that thing that we really don't know how we'll survive if we acknowledge it. It involves admitting our hurt, our shame, our fear, our weakness, admitting that there are things that terrify us. The thing is, when we do find the courage, in the deepest part of this experience, we often discover what it is that we want for ourselves. Not mere survival, which is good, that's a good thing, but more than that, we want what our larger self, what our spiritual self wants, which is more along the lines of dignity and respect and love and a voice and the power to use it for the greater good, not just for ourselves alone. Because by the time we finally get to this place, it's usually after we have been through enough fire to melt off anything that is not essential about us. At its most extreme, the grief process renders us. It melts off what's not essential, and what's left, all that's left, is the very best of what it means to be a human being. All that's left is the essential of what it means to be our own unique individual self. Here's the thing. When we're in that place, we also discover that we're not alone. There are traces of other people who have been here before us. And there's often a sense of presence. Maybe it's our ancestors. Maybe it's our own presence to our own experience. It might be the presence of the sacred, a larger love that's also there with us in this place, as it always has been and always will be. It's in this place of ultimacy that we can begin to know what we truly want for ourselves. It's not more stuff. It's not a bigger house or car or portfolio or reputation. It's what we want for our innermost self. We want things like love and respect and honesty and fairness and to be included just as we are. We want to bring our gifts to humanity and share them and be accepted. And so this is actually the place where ethics begins. This is the place where the golden rule begins. We do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If I want dignity and respect and honesty, a fair chance to be seen and welcome for who I truly am, then I should extend that to others. More recently, in light of equity and inclusion, people have proposed a new platinum rule. Do unto others as they would have done to themselves. What this allows is this allows for differences, and it allows us to behave well together despite what we don't yet know about each other and our differences. If someone tells us what they prefer, we can just extend that courtesy, that love, the platinum rule. All of this can be a challenge, of course. What helps is a witness, a companion, not someone to tell us what to do or to do any of this work for us. They can't. And if they try, they just get in the way. But what really helps is someone like a good therapist or a pastoral counselor or a spiritual director. What can help equally as much is the non-judgmental presence and companionship of friends, companions who listen as we travel together. Our pastoral care team does this beautifully, And I'm so grateful that they offer everything from practical support in the form of meals and rides, to cards from the community, to phone calls and Zoom sessions and walking, all for the purpose of connecting and for listening. And as Marc told us, sometimes we're the listener, and at other times, someone else listens to us. It's a two-way street, a two-way flow. Nothing about grieving is tidy or neat. It's a hot mess. Healing happens on its own timeline when our spirit has found what it needs. But what Martin Pretschel and others understand is that if we don't do our own inner work, we pass it along to family, to community, to culture. And at that point, it's unfinished and even more gnarly and complicated and messy. And yet, if we do this work of grieving and healing, it's possible, it's entirely possible, that we might begin to heal ourselves and also our society. Stacy shared just a few minutes ago the concept of tikkun olam, the repair of the world. There is no exact recipe that we follow, no set of step-by-step instructions. There's no map. We just start with ourselves. We start by discovering and telling our own story, and we listen to others tell their story. We are blessed with so many opportunities in our community to do this, including today at 1 at the Death Cafe. After a year when we have just discovered how powerless at times we can be, it is so good to know that making that journey to renew our experience, either alone in our journal or as we tell another person, this is a powerful way that we can begin to create new wholeness for ourselves, for our family, for our community. Friends, may our journey together be blessed, and may we each become a blessing to the world. Amen. We support this spiritual community in so many ways, with our listening and with other tangible gifts of food and rides and flowers and acts of kindness. We offer our financial contributions as well. And in all of these ways, together, we create a thriving community of hope and courage and resilience. Now is the time when you can make an online financial contribution if you wish. We give thanks for all in this beloved community, all the gifts so generously given that hold us and help us heal into new wholeness once again. Our final hymn this morning is Healing Circle. It's recorded and the words will be on your screen. You can sing along.
Won't you come to the circle, listen to our tales. You will find you're not the only one who's hurting, and the light will shine in. This is where we begin, the magic work of our healing. All alone in your room, you think you're the only one, and you're thinking that you might be crazy, so you lock all the pain and the shame deep inside, and your world is always dark and hazy. But won't you come to the circle, listen to our tales. You will find you're not the only one who's hurting, and the light will shine in. This is where we begin, the magic work of our healing. You are not unimportant. We need all the words and the melodies to harmonize. The darker the shadows, the brighter the sun, and your tears are the stars in our eyes. But won't you come to the circle, listen to our tales. You will find you're not the only one who's hurting, and the light will shine in. This is where we begin, the magic work of our healing.
Our closing words today are from the novelist and poet Wendell Berry. He says, "It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings." We leave our time together today renewed by the power of love, inspired to offer it freely to the larger world that is so in need. Go in peace, go in love. Amen.